Welcome back. I almost never record one of these videos and then come back and do an afterwards introduction, but I'm doing it this time because when I attempted Puzzle Rush Survival today, I encountered some startlingly difficult, for me, puzzles, and it didn't go as planned. So I just wanted to give that spoiler alert up front. But I did eventually go to the analysis board and figure out what I did wrong on those puzzles and what I failed to see. If you're new here, I'm not a titles player, I'm not a chess coach, I'm just a random person trying to get better at chess. But if you are higher rated than me, or even if you're lower rated than me, but see something that I missed in one of these puzzles, feel free to leave that in the comments to help me get better. And if you don't understand something in some of these puzzles, hopefully as I talk through my thought processes during the video, it'll help you in some way. But anyway, take a look at how it went. I'm going to click on Puzzle Rush and I'm going to choose Survival. Oh, okay, it says my top score is 34 up at the upper right. So I'm going to try not to pay attention to that, but at the same time try to beat it. I'm going to try to focus just on the puzzles, the 64 squares on the board. Let's click play. I don't believe there is a time limit on Puzzle Rush Survival. Okay, the first thing I'm going to look for is checks, and I do have a check. I think that's the only check that I have in this position, but I don't know if it's any good. I can also just capture this bishop, which looks like it has just been given to me. And I am in check right now, so actually I don't have any checks. See, something I could focus on. Okay, and then I believe I will just take the queen. Okay, I think I can check, and I think that's checkmate in one move. Okay. Here I also have a checkmate in one move because my bishop is protecting my queen, so I will play that. That was the end of that puzzle. With the green check marks, if you haven't played Puzzle Rush Survival before, you will see their rating of each puzzle slowly gets higher as we go, so they should get more and more difficult. Honestly, I felt like the last two were harder. I mean, were easier than the first one, but for some reason the first one was rated very low. Maybe it should have been easier for me. I don't know. I am in check, so I have to get out of check. But it looks like I can get out of check by just capturing the queen. If I don't do that, I think they could capture my bishop or continue putting me in check. So it looks like I should just capture the queen. Is there anything better than that? I don't think that there is. I can't block with my rook, and if I did, they would capture my bishop, so... All right, that was it. Here I have a checkmate in 2 because the opponent has left their back rank only protected by this rook. So I'll check here. That will force them to capture my rook, and then my other rook will capture, and that will be checkmate. All right. Do I have any checks in this position? I do. I have a checkmate in 1 right here. I don't think the opponent has any pieces guarding that square, and my pawn is protecting that square. And I am not currently in check. All right. I am playing with the black pieces. The back rank is protected by this rook. However, I can check that in a spot that is not on the back rank with my queen right here on f2, protected by my rook. That will force their king into the corner. And then I will go down to f1, which will force their rook to capture, and then my rook will capture, and that should be checkmate. All right, next puzzle. I am playing with the black pieces. Do I have any checks in this position? I do. I have a checkmate in 1 protected by my bishop. I don't think the opponent has any pieces guarding the g2 square, and I am not currently in check. All right. I'm trying to see those more quickly, but also I've gotten in the habit of looking around. I'm trying to get into the habit of looking around and making sure it's not a mistake. There have been times where I looked at the puzzle, thought I had a mate in 1, but the opponent had a piece guarding that square. So I'm trying to double check, and I would rather take a few extra seconds. Here again, it appears that I have a checkmate in 1 because I am not currently in check. The opponent is aiming down here at my king on g7, the pawn in front of my king, but that square is protected by my queen, and the opponent doesn't have anything protecting f2. So that was a checkmate in 1. That puzzle was rated almost 600. The opponent is attacking my rook. They are also preparing a battery with their queen and bishop lined up toward the area near my king. I can get my rook out of danger by checking, and it appears that if the king then moved over to the e file, I would follow with my queen, and that would be checkmate. If the king moved over to the g file, I would just continue over with my rook. And if the king came back, moving my queen there would be mate. And if the king went further, whoops, sorry about that. The king went even further, then I think I could go again and I would still have mate. So I think that's got to be the right move. Okay, it did go, so nothing else makes sense other than taking this pawn with check, because again, otherwise the opponent's going to start checking me. And here I will go, that will force the king back, and then bringing the queen over will be checkmate. Oh, it just stopped right before the checkmate. This looks like another fairly easy back rank checkmate, because first I will start by capturing the f2 pawn with check. The opponent isn't protecting that square with anything except the king, but the king can't take because my rook's back here, so the king will be forced over. I will follow with a check here. The rook will have to capture, and then I will bring my rook, and that will be mate. But it has to be checks all the way, because here, anytime my opponent moves this rook anywhere, I will be in check with their queen, a discovered check. So I think it has to be this, and then check on f1, and checkmate on f1. All right. Oh, that puzzle was rated 666. This looks like just the exact same thing once again. Check here, forcing the king back, and then following it up. The opponent doesn't have any pieces that can get to that square. Okay. All right, I'm playing with the black pieces. I have queen and a king, and the opponent has a rook and a knight and 3 pawns, one of which is about to promote with check. The first thing I look for is checks. I have a check here, but then the king has several choices to get out of check at that point. I have a check on f7. I think f7 is better, and the reason I say that is because that is protected by my king, and the queen then cuts off the diagonal and the 7th rank and the f file, and their own pieces in the way here, leaving the king only one choice. And then I'm pretty sure that bringing my queen over to h7 will be checkmate. Oh, it just stopped there. I am not in check, although I might be about to be in check, not sure. But again, this looks like I just have the back rank mate, the same as the like 3 or 4 puzzles. So I'm going to do that and this. All right, a lot of the puzzles have that exact same move order, looks like. Are we going to do the same thing again? We are. Look how many times I'm getting that exact same pattern. Just to be sure, once I leave my back rank unprotected, the opponent has a checkmate back here on the back rank. But it looks like I will checkmate them first. So, okay, that is 4 or 5 puzzles with that exact same pattern. I am down a pawn. I am in check. So I have to get out of check. I can get out of check in this 2 ways, either by moving out of check, which is 4 different ways I can move out of check, or by blocking the check. I'm tempted to block the check, inviting a queen trade, because I don't think the opponent's king can catch my pawn, and I can then promote in 4 moves. If they try to move this pawn to promote, I can move my king in front of it and block it. But they don't have to capture here. Yes, they do, because they'll be in check. So I'm pretty sure that it is queen to c6, blocking their check on me, but starting a new check on them. If they don't take my queen at that point, I would take theirs for free. So I assume they will capture my queen, and then I would capture back with my king here. Then what's their play? If they just move the pawn, then I would take it with my king. If they try to bring their king closer to protect that pawn, I will start marching mine. If they then move their pawn forward, I'll just put my king in front of their pawn, and then they can't stop mine. I don't think they can get close enough. Okay, they did take, so now nothing makes sense other than capturing back. They brought their king there, trying to get to my pawn. I thought they would go this way to protect their pawn movement, but I don't think they can get to my pawn. Okay, That it just takes a little bit of calculation. I do prefer endgame puzzles most of the time just because there are fewer pieces, so there's less to consider. Let's see. The first thing I'm going to look for is checks. I have 3 possible checks. One is by moving my rook to d5, which is not a good idea. I think that just loses a rook and opens their rook up to be able to come down at some point. So another check is pawn to c6, but that also looks like it just loses a piece. Well, in this case, a pawn. And my remaining check is rook to d1. Where does the king go in that situation? Wait. Let me go back one. But first, let me finish off this possible check. Here, in this case, rook to d1, I think their king could just slide out of the way there or here, or here for that matter. But going back to the pawn check, it doesn't just lose a pawn, does it? Because if the king has to do something. It either has to take the pawn or get out of check one of these ways, and then I will pick up their rook. It's a discovered attack. Once I check, I'm opening up my rook to attack their rook, and I think I would just win the rook. Okay. Almost missed that, didn't I? All right. In a game, it looks like the obvious move would be to take the bishop with this pawn. Our rooks are also facing each other, so I'm not certain if should I take their rook first. That's a check, which is a forcing move. I think it would force them to capture back with that rook. And then I would take their bishop. If I take their bishop and they take my rook and my king comes out here, then they can bring their other rook over and I would be in check. I'm not sure where I should go at that point. And I think that's my only check in this position. Okay, so that's the only check. Are there any captures? That's one of the captures. This is another of the captures. And that's it. Those are the only pieces I can capture in this position. Are there any threats? Can I threaten checkmate something else? I don't think that I can. And so of these 2 moves, I like the rook capture better. That does put their rook over here, but then I get their bishop because that rook capture is forced. And then they would only have a rook remaining, and I would have a bishop remaining and another rook. So I would come out ahead. This one's a little tricky. I'm going to take the rook. Okay, that was right. And then nothing else makes sense other than taking this bishop. Okay, that was right. And because it is the puzzle rush, we just go to the next puzzle, so I don't have a chance to check the other possibilities with the analysis board. Okay, I am playing with the white pieces. I do have a check in this position. It's rook to h1, which, since my king blocks off these squares, that would force their king over to g8. And then I would have a follow-up. I would have a couple of follow-up checks in that position, either knight to h6 or knight to f6. I don't know which one would be better. I do know that if I don't check first, if I try something like putting the knight here, they're going to check me. Not sure where. No, they wouldn't be able to check me there, would they? Let's look at that. This is actually threatening checkmate on h8. If I put my knight on f6 first before the check, they can't check me here because my rook is protecting b1. They wouldn't be able to check me on e4 because my knight is protecting that square. They wouldn't be able to check me on g4 because my rook is guarding that square. And since my knight is next to my king, they wouldn't be able to check me here or here. Those are all the possible checks. So what would they do? If I played knight to f6 first, it's not a check, but it is setting up checkmate. Would they try to protect that square, h1, perhaps by putting their queen on that long diagonal, which points at h8, preventing mate? And if they did that, then what would I do? They wouldn't come here to prevent that because the knight would capture it, but they could go back to b7, which guards the h1 square. I suppose I could bring my rook up next to my king, but then they could check me here. So maybe I should check first. If I check first, that forces them over to g8. Then check with the knight. They come over. Then my next check would be down there, but then they start getting out. And if they got out, that's where they would have to get out, and then I would fork them here. So that's what I'm going to try. Okay, wow, it took me a little bit of calculation, but I got it. Oh wow, I'm already 20 minutes into this thing. If you've made it this far in the video, leave a comment telling me what your favorite genre of book is. I'm just curious what kind of reading material, or if you don't read books, what other kind of reading material you prefer, whether it's magazines or newspapers or graphic novels or news on the internet, whatever it is. I personally enjoy science fiction. Not the wizards and dragons science fiction, although I do like Star Wars, but mostly spaceship and laser science fiction, exploring other planets, coming up with technical solutions, that sort of thing. But I also read a lot of other genres. I read histories and biographies, and so if you made it this far in the video, let me know. Back to the Puzzle Rush Survival. I'm playing with the white pieces. I only have one check, pretty sure, in this position, and that does not look good at all. But I've learned I should consider checks even if it is a piece sacrifice. In that case, either the king or the pawn could capture. If I gave up the rook, does that trap the king? If the king captures, it doesn't really trap the king because I don't have a follow-up check. But it's worth noting that the king is trapped now. Their king currently cannot move because my rook, my pawn, my king, and other pawn cut off all the squares around it. If there was a way to check them right now, it would be made. But I can't check them right now because I can't put this pawn here. I can't jump over my king with a pawn. But if I could somehow get a pawn right there, this would be checkmate. So my king would have to get out of the way. But my king cannot get out of the way because I can't go here because their pawn is guarding that square, and I can't go here because their queen is guarding that square. I could go here, but then I can't move my pawn because their queen would be pinning it. That's the only check I have. The only capture I have is this. Rook captures a2, but that looks like it just loses a rook. My opponent still has a queen and all these pawns. Now, if I did that, would I then have... I still would not have this ability because their queen would still be pinning my pawn, and I couldn't make that move. What if I moved this pawn first, then put my king behind it, and then played there? Because I would be threatening checkmate, because my king would be guarding both of those squares. What do they do if I play h4? If they promote, I think I would just take it with the bishop, because my bishop isn't part of this mating net. My rook cuts off those squares, and my pawn and my king and other pawns would be cutting off these squares. So my bishop is only needed to guard the promotion square. Okay, so let's think about that. What do they play if I play h4? It's this, this, and then this will be checkmate. But that's a 3-move mate, and I don't know what the opponent's going to do in response to that. Okay, well, that wasn't it, and we've gone on to the next puzzle, so I have no idea what I should have done there, and no way to get back to it. I do have a couple of 1, 2, 3 checks in this position. Are any of them good? It looks like they just lose a knight because the opponent has a lot of pieces guarding that square. So whichever knight I used to capture there, or to check there, it would, I assume, lose to the pawn first. And then if I took back with the other knight, then they could capture with their bishop or their rook or their queen, and it wouldn't matter. I would have lost 2 knights for a pawn. And the only thing I would have accomplished would be getting that pawn out of the way, which is not really in my way right now. Okay, what about this check over here? That one, they can capture back any one of 3 ways. So I don't think it's a check. Is it a capture? I can capture this bishop right now, and it's free. And that threatens the queen. What would my opponent do? I also have a capture here, but my opponent has 2 pieces protecting that square, the queen and the knight. I may be overthinking this, I don't know, but this seems more difficult than the 2000 level puzzles I've been working on in my normal puzzle solving sessions. I might be overthinking this. I think it's just taking the bishop, but I don't know. Oh, it was. And the queen moved in here, but I don't know which one's better. I'm just going to put it back where it was. Okay, I was overthinking it. Let's see, do I have any checks in this position? I do not have any checks in this position because my knight is not hitting any checking squares. They have a pawn in the way there, so I can't check with the bishop. I actually do have this check with the queen, I just saw. But that looks really easily blocked. And then I would take it with my knight. And if they captured back, of course, I would win their rook. Let's look at that. Check. What do? Well, they have to get out of check. They could move out of check, and then what would I do? Then I could check with this knight here, and if they captured, again, I would win their rook. And if they didn't, if they just moved out of check again, I'm going to try that because I don't see anything else. I do see that they're about to win this, but that's just a damaging of my pawn structure that I don't think is terribly serious. I think I have to take advantage of this right now because it is in danger. And one way to take advantage of that is with this check, which again, I think they would block with the pawn and I would capture it. Oh, okay. Well, it went exactly as my first instinct thought, but took a while. All right, they have moved their king out of check, so our queens are now facing each other. One option would be to take their queen, and that would be a check, which would force them to take back. And then I would check here and win their rook. Okay, that one seemed much more simple than a couple of the previous ones, even though it was rated 1278. The only check I have in this position is rook to e1. That allows their king to come here to threaten my rook or to simply get out of check on h2. If I got out of check on h2, I would have a follow-up with my queen on c7, which I think they could then just block by pushing a pawn. But I think if I check here, they're going to come toward my rook. And then I would have to move my rook again, and I don't know where I would move it. I can't take this pawn because their rook is pinning that pawn to my king. What about rook to e4? That's a threat on their rook, but what, I mean, wouldn't they just take it? Actually, no. Yeah, I think they would take it, and when I took back, sorry, keep my colors consistent. I think they would take it if I took back with my pawn, they would take back with their queen, and then they would be up a pawn, but then I could take this pawn. What about queen to e7? That just popped into my mind. That threatens a little bit stronger checking attack down there on the back rank. It also points at this pawn, so then if they captured and I took back, they wouldn't take with their rook because my queen would be pointed at it. But that gives up the defense of this pawn, which they would take with check. So I don't think that's it either. I have to make a move. Time is ticking. Or should I threaten their queen? That's one idea. I can threaten their queen because, okay, wow, I almost gave up and just made a random move. I can threaten their queen. Their queen is the only thing protecting their rook. Okay. Well, that wasn't it, so I have no idea what it was. Wow. All right, that puzzle was rated 1335, and I'm about to be nowhere near my record, but again, if you're higher rated than me, if you've made it this far in the video, or even if you're lower rated than me, which some of you are, feel free to explain that if you understood it, because I know that just because someone's higher rated or lower rated doesn't always mean that they know the same things about chess. This looks pretty bad for me. My opponent has a passed pawn. They have a queen infiltrating here. They have a rook pointed down this way. Do I have any checks? I do have a check. Queen to e4 check. They could block, but then I would have a follow-up check here, but then they could block again or move out. But that's my only check in this position. Possible captures are taking this knight, which I'm not going to do that because of the rook. There is a threat here of bringing the rook down, threatening this, but once I get this rook off of my 7th rank here, well, not there because of my bishop, but maybe my opponent comes in here one of these ways and checks me, and then I'm in trouble. That one looks the best because I have to then get out of check here and they checkmate me. So my rook needs to stay here for now. I am playing with the black pieces, right? What am I doing here? This bishop's not pointing at anything. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, I'm going to check. Oh, that was right, and they did block. I can check again, but okay. Now there, if they block again, I can check down this way on their back rank. But then that would just force them out. They could just move out of check. Then I could check again, and then they could move out of check. And then would we have perpetual? Surely that's not the answer here. And that pawn is still protected by their knight. And plus taking it would not be check, and they're coming in behind my row of pawns. So I think I have to check again. It might end up being perpetual because if I don't do a stalemate, they're going to win. And I can't stop it. Pretty sure. Wait, what about this? Should I check first and then put my rook over here? That gets their queen out of this threat. Then they would no longer be threatening me because they'd have to move their queen somewhere. And they couldn't move it. Oh, they could just take that pawn. Wow. Yeah, if I leave the protection of that pawn and they take it, look at this row, this mass of completely connected passed pawns. I'm going to check again. What happened? That's not where I moved. What? It had to be there. Okay, well that's frustrating. Can I open that in a new tab and see? Okay, I'm going to click play that one. That's the last one that I missed. And I got this move right, and then I moved here, but it dropped it there. Oh my goodness. That's not cool. Oh, I would have failed it anyway. Okay. Then what was it? Because it had to be a check again. Oh, they can't come in there right now. Maybe, is this where I threatened their queen? I don't know what's going on. That wasn't it either. Okay, well, I'm going to click the hint button. It was taking the knight. And that would have been the end of the puzzle? That puzzle was only rated 1300. What about the one before that I missed? Okay, they went there, and I tried to threaten their queen, but that wasn't it. So this is the one I had no idea. It was checking on the back rank, but they're going to come toward me. Why didn't they come toward me? That doesn't make any sense. Because now I can check them again over here. I don't know if that's the best move or not, but it was. And they blocked with their queen. That counted on them making what I pretty sure was the poor move. This is the analysis board for that puzzle. They played that pawn move. Now here, rook to e1, it says is the best move, but why didn't they come toward me? That's what I don't understand. It says king to h2 is actually their best move, but what's wrong with king to f2? What do I do then? I have to move the rook. It says to go here now. Well, that was one of my ideas from the beginning, but then they... Oh, that's why they shouldn't have gone to f2, because now when this pawn moves, it's check. Now if they take me here and I take back, it's check and they lose their queen. Oh my. Okay, well, I understand that. So it says like here their best move is actually just to take this pawn, because otherwise they lose their rook for my rook and a queen once that discovered check happens. So yeah, their best move now is just to take this pawn and I would take it back. Okay, that's why they would go back there. Okay, let's back up. And they went back here, and it didn't make any sense to do anything other than this, but why did they block with their queen? Why didn't they just pull a pawn forward? It actually says pulling the pawn forward is their best move. Yes. Okay, now what do I do? It says to go here. Oh, because I would be threatening mate at that point. And then what do they do? Wait, it says they would take this pawn with check. Okay. And then I have to get out of check, which I think I would go to b7, but then they would take this pawn with check. Right? It says they would not. It says now they would play g4. Why would they play g4? Because I'm threatening this. Oh, if they play g4, that would give their king an escape route. I think most opponents I've played would take here with check. But let's say they play g4. Is it still my best move to check down there? It isn't. It is not. It's one of them, though. Oh, Stockfish just changed its mind. Now it says that that's my best move, which is what I would have thought. Earlier it was saying rook to e2 check. Now it's saying rook to e2 check again, or this. So any of those checks are good. With the queen in the corner, the rook in the corner, or the rook to e2. Let's go back to the beginning of that puzzle. It had to be the check, and we found out why they didn't bring the king to f2, because then I would go here, And then if they took, that would be check and I would win the queen. So they went there, so I had to follow up check. And the reason that they blocked with the queen is because you saw what happened when they didn't do it. And then here I just removed the defender of the queen by playing there. Okay, let's look at the other puzzle that I failed, the 1100 rated puzzle. Well, first they did that, and I played h4 thinking I was going to have some sort of sneaky pawn checkmate here. But it was something else. It was something else. Was it blocking this pawn with my bishop? Surely not. Because then they would come down here and take the bishop, right? Was it taking that pawn with my bishop? Because that cuts off this. Wait, my rook's already cutting off that. I don't understand. I don't know. I have no idea. And we know it wasn't h4 because that's what I played in the puzzle and it said that was wrong. And I'm pretty sure that's wrong because it pins my king to this pawn and doesn't protect that. So I can't, it's not a mating thing. Is it just taking this pawn? Oh, it was just taking that pawn. Wait, what? Why? I had to assume they would just give up their queen? And that's the whole puzzle? That puzzle doesn't have a theme. There's no theme for the opponent's about to give you their queen for a pawn. Analysis board. Yeah, I completely missed that one. Mate in 3. That's what it says. Mate in 3. And that's the only move that does it. Okay. So what if they didn't? Oh, it says their best move is actually here, but either way, it's mate in 2. Okay, what if they promoted their pawn? Then what am I going to do? Let's just say they promoted their pawn. Oh, that's mate. Wow. I would have never seen that in a game. I did notice, right before I failed this puzzle by doing this, I did notice that my pawn cut off that square, and my king is cutting off these 2 squares, as well as this pawn cutting off that one. I also noticed that my rook was cutting off all of these squares. So I said that the king was trapped. If I could check right now, it would be mate. And I was trying to think of a way to check with these pawns. But apparently it was to go here, which prepares the check over there, threatening the mate in 1. So that's why they gave away the queen, because it forces me to take the queen. And now there's nothing they can do to prevent this. They can promote, they can push either one of these pawns, or they can push that pawn, but they can't move their king and they can't stop me from checkmating right there. Okay, well, hopefully, if any of you made it all the way to the end, you learned something or have left a comment teaching me something. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.